I was just invited to stay the night at my friend Jeremy's house when I was a little boy. I remember the anticipation I had building up inside of me all day because he had just gotten the new Super Mario Bros. And though I knew there would be other kids there besides me, I would at least get a turn playing. We were not too big into television at my house, and my parents were never the type to allow video games, so events like this were always something to look forward to. Unfortunately, this would be the last time I stayed over at anyone's house. The night started off pretty normal. We sat around in the basement and watched a movie with his older brother Chris. Chris was a decent enough guy. He was 14 at the time, and we all thought he was pretty cool, even though he picked on Jeremy quite a bit. We ate a lot of junk food. Jeremy's mom made us a big dinner for everyone, and as the night came to a close, we grabbed the Super NES from the closet, plugged it in, and started on Mario. We each got a few turns, and it was just as wonderful as I had hoped. Around 10 p.m., Jeremy's mom yelled down that it was time for us to go to bed. We yelled back, "Okay," in a droning unison, and turned off the gaming system. Making my way to my designated sleeping bag, something felt kind of off. I remember looking around the room and thinking it was strange that Chris had decided to go back upstairs, even though he was allowed to stay up late and take the Nintendo to his room if he wanted. I shrugged it off and laid my head back down for the evening. Around 1 in the morning, I was awoken by a loud thud coming across the room. I didn't bother pulling my head from my sleeping bag, thinking it was most likely just one of the kids getting up to use the bathroom or something. I closed my eyes, but within seconds the bump returned, this time closer to my bag. "Jeremy," I whispered, trying to keep a hushed tone. "Jeremy, is that you?" The thud came closer again. "Jeremy!" I called a little louder. Thud. "Jeremy," I said at a regular volume, still not wanting to wake everyone up, but still to let whoever was awake know that I was up and they were bothering me. Thud. Right next to me. Then again, slightly farther away, over toward the closet. Again. The closet door opened quietly and shut. "Jeremy, stop!" I shouted at him, now waking everyone else in the room. Jeremy hit the light switch up by the stairs. When the bulb from the top of the staircase dimly lit the room, everyone was still in their sleeping bags, rubbing their eyes and wondering what was going on. "What's wrong?" Jeremy asked me. "Why are you yelling?" He spoke through his balled fist and covered his yawn. "Do you need to get my mom?" Before I could answer the question, Jeremy's mother came running down the basement door, wrapping a robe around herself, wondering why we were all awake. I tried to explain that there was a loud thud right next to my sleeping bag, and that it was the noise making across the room. But they didn't want to hear it. Jeremy's mother said that it must have been my imagination, but I pleaded with her to check. She refused, telling me that I must go to bed. I mentioned that the closet door had been opened, and she said that she had better not find any of us boys getting into that closet this late at night. That it was time for bed, not for playing. We all laid down and went to sleep, except me, of course, who stayed up staring into the darkness, waiting to hear more noises that never came. The next morning we all awoke to a very strange smell. It was a sweet smell, not like a bake or anything pleasant like that. It was a pungent trait that made you squint your eyes as you caught wind of it. We all looked around the room, thinking that maybe someone had soiled the bed, but at that age, we all were beyond that stage. We all ran upstairs for breakfast, laughing and accusing each other of passing gas, shoving one another up the staircase, and leaving a mess of sleeping bags and blankets covering the floor of the basement. Jeremy's mother went down to straighten up a bit, and I heard her scream. She ran back up the stairs, telling us all to go outside and wait on the sidewalk, which we did, while she grabbed for the phone. I remember that it was the first time I had actually seen an adult cry outside of the movies, and it scared us all. Jeremy didn't come to school for about a week after that. When he returned, we all asked what happened and what was going on, since the police had visited each of us, asking us questions about the night. They were particularly interested in the bumping and thudding noises I had heard. He didn't tell us for almost a month, but eventually it got out of him. His mom had found Chris's body in the closet, manipulating the poor mess. A trail of dark body fluid streaking right past my sleeping bag. To make matters worse, who or whatever did this scratched into the wall. We didn't like him. Jeremy and his family moved away after that, and we didn't talk for years. I finally caught up with him briefly online via Facebook. He told me that he was doing well and his parents had finally, as far as he knew, recovered from the incident. He apologized for that night, which was something I never expected him to do, nor did I find it necessary. I felt terrible for him. After a few minutes of talking, I signed off, and that was that. We never did talk again. That was about 2 years ago, but I think I might need to give him a call. As I unloaded my boxes of clothes into my closet of my new apartment, I saw that there were scratches on the inside of the wall. They said, "We didn't like him, we liked you better." I decided to contact Jeremy again and ask him to grab a cup of coffee with me. I figured I should lead with something a little lighthearted, or risk him not wanting to join me at all. I can't imagine he would be willing to talk about a conversation involving his brother and whatever killed him. Before you can tell me that I'm a terrible person for this, I know. I feel terrible that I wasn't honest up front, but I needed to know a little more information, and that felt like the best way to get it. I'm sorry. I was incredibly surprised when he contacted me back immediately and agreed to go, but with urgency. He asked if we could meet that night and said he was happy that I got a hold of him, that if I hadn't, he was going to reach out to me. We ended up at a Dunkin' Donuts around 12:30 a.m., grabbed coffee, and went out to sit in the bed of my pickup truck to talk. It felt almost like I was with my friends in high school again, but now with Jeremy, who obviously went to a different school than I, and certainly didn't meet up with me for the last night coffee runs back then. I asked him what was new and what was up with his world, but before I could finish my question, he interrupted me. "Has it contacted you yet?" he asked, not looking up from his steaming cup. "Has it tried to talk to you at all?" I asked him to explain a little, trying to play dumb a bit. I wanted to be sure we were on the same page before I dropped this bomb on him. He looked rough. He had circles under his eyes, and his hair was a mess. The truth about his hygiene was more than a mystery. The poor guy looked like a wreck, and I didn't want to throw any more weight on his shoulders just yet. The thing that got my brother, it finds a way to talk to people. It isn't exactly simple about it either. If it has, you'd know. Did it contact you yet? I nodded my head quietly. He took a sip of his drink before speaking. Then you need to leave soon. Now, if you can. Is there anywhere else you can stay for a while? No, I said back. What is this? What are you saying, Jeremy? This thing, this creature, it is looking for you now. What is it? I replied. I don't know. I've never seen it. No one has, I don't think. But it hurts. It hunts, and it takes down people like you and me. People like Chris. Did you see it that night? Did you see it take my brother? Jeremy asked. I told him that I hadn't seen anything and that it was too dark. However, I had tried to talk to it, if he recalled. That was a mistake, he said. You shouldn't have let it know you were awake. I did, and now it hasn't left me alone in years. Wait a minute, I said, loud enough to startle him. You were awake too? You saw it? I didn't see it, but it heard me. It bumped my foot as it moved my brother. I made a noise and the dragging noise stopped. I could feel it looking at me. I convinced myself it was a bad dream, and I went back to sleep until you yelled. Why didn't you say anything before? What was I supposed to say? I thought I was going crazy, Jeremy said. But it has followed me ever since, everywhere I go. I have tried to tell the police that I am being stalked and that I need help, but nothing is going to make anything better. They can't do anything. The only person I can trust anymore is my mother. I asked what happened to his dad, and he said he was still around to help, if he was still around to help, but apparently his father passed away 2 years ago, drank himself to death. He didn't take Chris's death as well as Jeremy and his mother had. I didn't know what to say to him. Luckily, he jumped in with his warnings. Look, man, I know it's crazy, but I'm telling you, it's coming for you. And it won't stop. The best you can do is run. I would recommend trying this this week, at the latest. I'm sorry you got caught up in this. I have to go. Though I had a million questions in my mind, I knew he certainly didn't have any answers. I let him get back in his car and leave in silence before driving back to my apartment. I spent last night in my truck across the street from the police station, though. It was the only place I felt even remotely safe. I'll keep you updated soon, but I don't know if I can stay in my apartment. Dug into the wall of my living room were the words, "Old friends are fun, aren't they?" I woke up in my truck this morning around 8 a.m. I thought about making it to work, but that would involve me going back into the apartment to get a shirt and tie, which I stupidly forgot when I left the house. I guess you could say I was in a bit of a hurry to get out. I tried to get a hold of Jeremy again and succeeded. However, his responses were all the same. Leave. Go as far as you can. It'll never stop. Trust me. I replied with questions that I knew I should have asked last night, but unfortunately didn't. I tried to dumb down the messages to simple yes or no type questions, but he still just continued to tell me the same thing. I'm not kidding. You need to leave. Once it has found you, it's going to hunt you down. The worst message, or at least the one that got me the most, was the one he sent, which simply said, "Remember what happened to my brother? You're gonna be next. Please." That one sent a chill down my spine. I remember the look on his mother's face when she came up the stairs. I remember how frightened she looked, but more so, how whatever she had just seen was something unfathomable, something beyond death. I can only picture what this thing had done to Chris. I decided to take a look into some of the police records. Thank God for libraries and their free internet. I wasn't going to for my laptop. I looked for images of Chris's body, or the body, or anything that might give any clues as to what actually happened, but fell short for the most part. I had never taken the time to actually get any details from the incident. I think we all simply tried to forget it ever happened. None of us at the sleepover really wanted to remember that night. None of us had ever spoken since then. Then it dawned on me. Who else was at that sleepover? Maybe I wasn't the only one. I quickly logged on to Facebook and did a little research on my classmates that were there that night. Sam Jones, incredibly generic name. Even though we were in a small town back then, there was no telling where exactly he could be now. From what I could see, he either didn't have a Facebook page or moved away. And trying to find a specific Sam Jones from years and years ago was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. That wasn't happening. Tyler Brixler, not so common name. Found him within a few minutes, but his page was on private and it seemed that he hadn't logged in or updated anything in years. The picture he used was of a pretty young man, likely not even 20 years old. I didn't think that would be of any help, but I added him anyway. Never got a response, at least not yet, so he isn't going to help me. But finally I got the first clue with Justin Lowers. Justin was a skinny kid that I remember as being relatively popular. I could only assume his reputation would follow him in his adult life. His memorial page had over 3,000 people following it. Justin had been killed about over a year and a half ago in some small Pennsylvania town. Apparently some brutal attack. This, above all, scared me. I kept searching. William Tanner, dead. Josh Gillen, dead. Randy Handel, dead. This immediately explained the absence of the first two boys. From the looks of it, Jeremy and I were the only ones left. And now, all these years later, it was finally my turn to go. It had nothing to do with me seeing it. I was there, and that was more than enough reason to kill me, to hunt, to take down. I wondered if these other boys even knew what was coming. I decided to message Jeremy one more time. What have you done? His responses came in seconds, almost as if he was waiting for me to contact him. I did what Mommy told me to do. I stared at the screen for what felt like at least a minute. Jeremy said nothing more. I ran through the list of things I could reply with in my head, not wanting to have more of a conversation than necessary for obvious reasons. Finally, I decided not to say anything at all and get my stuff to leave town. I hated the idea of having to move away already. I didn't want to begin to think of the mess that this was going to cause in my life, but I knew very well that if I wanted to have a life to be messed up at all, I needed to leave. I wasn't going to fight this. I shouldn't. Obviously, that hadn't worked for the other boys, and I didn't want to be as stupid as to think that 160-pound me could fight off Jeremy. I thought about how he looked when we met up with him and tried to do a size comparison, and there's no doubt that he would have no problem winning that battle. Not to mention, I don't exactly believe that he would be in a fair fight. I rush into my apartment and grab 2 or 3 black trash bags from under the sink. There isn't any time for neat organizing. I just want to throw the essentials into the bag and get the hell out of Dodge. I throw in some t-shirts, jeans, a jacket, a hat, my laptop, some pictures of the family that I can't be without, and a few other little things I know I will need down the road, and start back to the front door of the apartment. As I walk down the hallway, the entrance is in sight. I feel a hand take hold of my collar and pull me into the open, dark bathroom. I try to scream, but a hand covers my mouth and quietly shushes me, lowering me down into the shadows behind the shower curtain. I close my eyes and begin to pray that it wouldn't be painful, that it would just be as swift and quick as that it might be over before I could register what was happening. But nothing happens. My eyes stay shut and I feel my teeth grinding against themselves as I wait for impact, but there is none. We just sit there in the dark, his hand over my mouth, as I hear the front door to my apartment open. I gather the courage to open my eyes, and in the darkness, I make out the features of my childhood friend. Jeremy tightens his grip over my lips and shakes my head to instruct me not to make a noise. The footsteps from the front door are soft and slow and coming toward us. I can feel Jeremy's hands begin to tremble as he reaches down into the tub we are now both lying in, pulling up a long, shiny cleaver. I wince again in natural fright, only making his grip on me even tighter. The footsteps at the bottom of the bathroom door. Now I can see the silhouette standing at the threshold through the translucent curtain. It just stands there, apparently looking in. "Bring him out, baby," says the woman. "Bring mommy the boy." I shake tremendously. I can't decide whether to run or to fight, so instead I just shake. Tears fill my eyes as I await Jeremy's next move. "No, mommy," Jeremy says in a pathetic, childish whimper. "I don't want to." "Jeremy, don't be a bad boy. You know what happens to bad boys. Chris was such a bad boy." His mother's voice drops in tone, almost as if her personality had flipped completely. "And you remember what happened to him, don't you?" "I'm not a bad boy," Jeremy shouts, hugging my head against his chest. "I'm a good boy. You're bad, Mommy. You're bad." "Give me the boy," the mother shouts. "You have till the count of 3. 1, 2, and before she can get out the word 3, Jeremy throws me to the side of the tub and leaps out toward his mother. She gives a shrill scream as I watch the shadowy figure of the blade come down on her, Jeremy crying loudly as he repeats his driving of the knife. I watch the figures both lower to the ground, and the screams from the mother eventually stop, unlike the thrusts of the knife or Jeremy's sobbing. After what feels like an eternity of crying sounds and what I can only compare to the sounds of one would hear in the back of a butcher shop, I hear the clang of the knife hitting the floor and hurried footsteps rush out the front door of the apartment. I come out of the bathroom to find Jeremy's mother, now nothing more than a bloodied mess on the floor of the bathroom. I call the police. And that brings us to where we are now. I stayed at the police station this weekend. They are setting me up with therapy, which I think I will find very helpful. They asked a lot of questions, and I feel like I have told the story 100 times already to many different people in many different uniforms. They all asked me where I thought Jeremy might have headed, but at this point I couldn't give them any idea. I have no clue where he is now. All I can do is hope, wherever he is being a good boy.